You're listening to The Freight Break on the BCS Freight Network with your hosts, Josh Haynes and Paul Gibson.
All right, it's time for The Freight Break. How's it going, Josh?
It's going good. Post-summit, feeling somewhat rested. How are you doing? Sleep finally catching up on you?
It was. I got a little bit of a stomach bug, but luckily we filmed this remote, so I don't worry about giving it to anybody. Like our guest today, Chris from 10 Logistics. So that's pretty cool, And I think it's like long enough to where it wasn't from the summit or anything, because we outside of what you saw in the episode last week and me in the pickle costume and talking to people on stage, we actually got to go around and do a lot of pretty cool interviews. One of them being Mitch from Tai. All right, so we're here. We got Mitch from Tai. How's it going, man?
It's excellent, Paul.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us. I love BCS. It's so great to see an event where we're bringing carriers and brokers together and kind of bridging the gap. I mean, these guys have to work together every day, so a place where we get to meet when we're not working, it's really cool.
Compared to like a lot of other conferences, what do you think makes BCS a difference?
The thing that makes BCS a really great conference is that we get an opportunity to get the carriers and the brokers together, but it's really the connectivity that's the focus here. It's about having some conversations and hopefully being able to take like that one thing back with you that helps make your business a little better or helps build a better relationship with a broker or carrier or something. You get to take something home with you that adds some value to your day and adds some value to your business. And that's the real value of BCS.
Your guys' products like touch everything. It's nice that you guys are connecting tissue in all of that. So can you kind of speak to like how to like the value that Tai brings to a situation?
Yeah, so at Tai, what we're trying to do is bring everything together, that connective tissue, that center of action for a freight broker, and that allowing the TMS to connect to all the tools so that all the information comes back so that the people who are operating it, who are sitting there every day, can do their job better because they have the information they need to make decisions in context. So at Tai, we're trying to allow you to have what you need, make those decisions, and run your business more effectively by making it better for the operations person first. And by making it better for them, it moves out to the rest of the organization.
Well, what is Tai up to? Like, what is the big push right now? You guys got anything like coming up soon, or you got like what is?
We always got something cooking at Tai.
Oh, yeah.
That's Mantle. We always got something new going, and that's what we try to do as the technology partner for freight. Is that we want to make sure that we're moving tech forward and providing what our customers need, so that they can get the most out of their business and not have to worry about the technology partnership. So what we're focused on right now is the idea of never make a check call again. And what does that mean to us? It means building workflows and automations that link into AI tools, that link into more traditional communication mechanisms, bring it all together so that you have a strategy so that you can reduce or eliminate the check calls, saving your carrier's time, saving your customers' time, and saving your broker's time by shutting down some of the repetitive, time-consuming work that nobody really likes.
I've heard a lot of people say like, efficiency, like that kind of shuts down some of the human part of it and takes out. But one thing that I've found more and more is like when you can eliminate that kind of stuff, when that person calls you and it's not one of the obnoxious like,
right.
Or it allows you to be more intentional, actually build those relationships better. Because when you're calling, you actually get a call as a human with something to talk about. If someone was thinking about coming to a BCS, we kind of on the line, what would you tell them?
Take 2 days. You got to invest in your business. You got to invest in yourself. So when you're thinking about, should I come to BCS or not? Remember, you're making an investment in your business. It's a time where you get to be strategic and you get to think about, how am I going to operate my business? What's going to make my business better for the next year? And that'll pay dividends over the transactional work you're doing. So always take the time, be deliberate about making your business better. And you can do that by visiting BCS. You can do that by implementing a Tai TMS. You can do that by focusing on the strategic side of running your business, not just the transactional side. Make sure that you're running your business, not letting your business run you.
Yeah, it was a pretty good conversation. And I mean, you'll get to see probably a bit more from that and a lot of other conversations we had over the coming months, leading up to Dallas.
Dallas, it is crazy to think about that we've already got to start talking about Dallas, but if you miss Kansas City, you don't want to miss Dallas, October 27th through the 28th. Dallas, Texas, BCS Summit. It's going to be awesome. I do got to point out that anyone that did go to the Kansas City one, let me be the reminder that if you've got a whole stack of those business cards sitting on your desk, reach out to all those people, actually build the relationships that you talked about when you were there. Don't let those die out. So many people were building relationships. Me and Paul saw it firsthand. We met a lot of awesome people. There's so many emails that we're catching up on, reaching out to people. But reminder, don't let those relationships die out because, you only get what you put into it. And that is a big thing.
It's true. And, that is a good point, especially getting to that, like, if you've already got those cards, man, like, that'd be wild. Like, you're, like, already over the finish line.
Mm-hmm. Make sure you actually finish. Yeah, don't stop at like the 99, percent. Like actually, continue the growth from there because those people may be also in Dallas, and you don't want to run into them and have not, built that relationship. That would be weird, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, no, that's like going to the store. You went to the store, you got all the ingredients, you went, you mixed them up, you got everything you need to bake cookies, and you put them in the oven, and then you just don't take them out till they're inedible.
I was just picturing someone walking to the store with a bunch of groceries and then just dropping them at the counter and walking out.
Even if you didn't get a card, like anyone you see who posted about it, on like LinkedIn or different sites and stuff, reach out to those people too. If you didn't get to meet them when you were there, I mean, the network doesn't go away. And I mean, half the conversations that people end up having are conversations that started online that, came to life at the BCS.
I do love that. That is a good point. There was a lot of people that I ran into and maybe didn't get to talk to. And then as the days went on, I jumped on LinkedIn and, saw all the photos, everything tagged, BCS Summit, Kansas City, anything like that. And I started making connections with those people because I didn't have time to talk to them. So that is a really good point.
Yeah. But all right, now it's time to get to our guest. How's it going, Chris?
Hey, Paul. Hey, Josh. Nice to talk to you guys. Going good.
For sure. Yeah. So it's 2026. I don't know that we've like really gotten a lot of time to get to know each other, so I'm excited about this. But we do come from the carrier side, and so and I know for the broker side too. For everybody, it's been better next quarter, better next quarter, better next quarter. Unless you ask me, and I'm like, it's not. And but how is it? Either way, it's a rough environment out there right now. How are you?
I think right around the end of 2024, maybe into 2025, people started getting tired of being wrong by saying the recession was over. So I think they just kind of stopped saying it. But that was kind of funny for a couple of years, is every 6 months or so you'd say, hey, freight recession's over. And then turns out it wasn't. So as we kind of gone into 2026 with a couple of different factors affecting capacity and rates and things like that, we're doing okay, right? We there's a lot of brokerages out there that say they're relationship based focused. We're one of those as well. We really try to embody that just because we don't really have a business without our carriers. So when it comes to capacity shifts, rate changes, things like that, as long as you're doing the right thing by your carriers, they're going to be there for you, and you can kind of power through on that relationship side of things.
The relationship side of it, I think, is huge, and it's been good to hear a lot of people say that. I mean, not that I want to see anyone get out. It's also nice to see that the people who are really doing well right now are the people who take that approach.
Yep. Unfortunately, as we well know, as people love to talk about, there's a lot of people that do things the wrong way out there. And so, you want to continue to keep doing things as best you possibly can right by both your customer and your carrier. And it's a fun balancing act. But at the end of the day, if you're working with good people and you continue to try and do right by all, throw out price, things like that, things will continue to work out well for you.
Yeah, and so like looking at your history, where you've been, and how you came up, started entry level, and now you're where you're at. So my question is, when it comes to relationships, because I've found how cutthroat the freight side is. The carrier side is super cutthroat. The freight side is wild, which makes sense, because you have your book of business, and if you don't have that, then it's like, what do you have? But how do you build, like, how do you build those relationships in a way that like make sure that you're like the person, I guess. I don't know. Like what is the best way to like to lock somebody in a relationship as far as like a carrier from the broker side?
Yeah, from a carrier relationship standpoint, I think a lot of people might approach it a little bit too robotic, whereas I prefer it to be kind of more of it's more of a legitimate conversation, understanding what the carrier is wanting out of business. Because not every driver is fit for every type of freight. It's okay to say, hey, you're not the best fit for this specific shipment or this specific lane. It just doesn't make sense based off of where you're based, the equipment that you have. Is it multi-stop? Is it tarping? Things like that, right? So I think having that conversation, not just once, but continuously saying, hey, what do you like to do? What can I potentially match up? And that the whole trust factor between a broker and a carrier can kind of come down to really just being available and being that person that says, hey, it's not broker versus carrier, it's broker and carrier with the same goal of moving this shipment as safely and as efficiently as possible. And then on the backside, right, making sure they get paid as fast as we possibly can, because we want to keep that moving. Because again, I said a little bit earlier, without our carrier network, we don't really have much of a business at all. So being able to keep our carriers moving and kind of being that extension and that resource to get them through whatever going on. Again, not just the first time, but continuously, because let's say you're at a brokerage with KPIs of 100 calls a day, right? You can make 100 calls to carriers that one first time, maybe write them down on a list. But if you don't maintain that and you don't call them week after week and say, hey, what do you got going on? Here's what my book's looking like. You're not going to be able to form anything. You're not going to be able to maintain anything. And then you might be cycling through new carriers every couple of months, which is can kind of put your customer's freight at risk if you're always using those first time guys.
That was something I wanted to ask too. If you're having to cycle, if you're in a spot like that and you're having to cycle through carriers, we mentioned that the freight recession is like the hot topic. Every quarter, the next thing is going to get better. The other hot topic is fraud. So how do you, which I agree and kind of I approach it that the relationships definitely matter so much to help preventing fraud. I don't think it can completely eliminate it, but it definitely can lower the risk a little bit. How do you guys handle fraud recently? Because it seems like it's just been a massive surge.
Yeah, I think something that I've been noticing is, everything's really trending down to the driver level. It's not just looking at an MC number on paper, whether it's through my carrier portal or highway or carrier 411 on freight card reports, things like that. It's not necessarily just looking at an MC on your computer screen and saying, are they good or not? It's those conversations and those questions that go down to the dispatcher or driver level. And there's some questions that you can kind of ask any driver to get a good feel about it, saying, hey, is this a lane that you run often, right? Like we use highway. So our, highway has their little heat map that shows the ELD pings, right? If you're looking for a load going to California, but I see you work exclusively in Georgia and Florida, hey, kind of what's going on there. So you really getting to the driver level can help possibly prevent a lot of issues before they surface, because you're able to ask these specific questions about your freight. And kind of earlier what I said about matching the right driver to the right shipment. Fraud is crazy. These bad actors are trying just as hard as the good guys to get better at what they do. And so technology is going to continue to get better and continue to innovate. It's not a foolproof plan. You have to be able to have these conversations and get to the driver level, like I mentioned, but it's something that you're always working to improve on, just to kind of pick up on, your spidey senses, pick up on these red flags when you're talking to a carrier that you maybe haven't worked with before, or a carrier that you have worked with before, but it's a new contact or a new driver, things like that.
Yeah. So to put those two questions together, so when, relationship based, right? And obviously to do that, like there's an element of trust there. There's an element of, a little bit of credit that gets given up front. And then also like fraud is rampant, right? So when you're trying to open up to somebody to like close a deal or land somebody new, where is the balance between those two? Because I know that there are some people that don't obviously care because they just still run the freight anyway. And there's people that overly care, which does stop a lot of small carriers from actually getting into the market sometimes. So I'd be curious, in your opinion, where where is the balance between like opening up, building a relationship, and like just assuming everybody has the worst intent?
Yeah, that's a great question. Kind of how I look at it when we go about, maybe our technology to help fight fraud and things like that. You have to find that middle ground of trying to protect yourself as much as possible from something that could potentially happen without going so over the line that you're going to cut yourself off from people that you could work with, right? So when it comes to let's talk about these smaller carriers, one truck, two truck fleets. Maybe they're a box truck or a flatbed hot truck, because we do a lot of expedite. We may see a lot of flags on these carriers where it says, hey, no inspection within the last 365 days. It's like, well, if you're a one-man crew in a box truck where you're constantly moving around, and I think Freight Caviar posted kind of a good thing about this is you're very rarely going to maybe see these guys get inspected quite regularly, these one-man crews. So it kind of comes down to that, like I said, all about having that conversation directly with the carrier. And again, it's okay to say no to a carrier that might be all green on paper. Again, looking for that right fit. And it is a lot easier, or excuse me, a lot harder to do than you just say it out loud. Hey, a carrier that's all green is calling in and they want to book this load that I have that I need to cover. You can say no. It's kind of working through these different systems in your processes and not being your own worst enemy. Because a lot of brokerages, stories I've heard or people I've talked to in the industry, where they get burned is not following their own rules. So it really sticking to the script and sticking to what you have and what you've set up in place is going to be huge. Because if you break your own rule on a Friday afternoon for a hot load that needs to be covered, that load might be halfway across the country on Sunday, and you're wondering, hey, how come it's not going to deliver on Monday? Because you have no idea where it is.
I do like, I love how you said not every load needs to be taken by you, and that sometimes you have to trust your spidey sense, and sometimes you have to say no because it's gonna save you in the long run. And to Paul's point, having those relationships, I do think takes a lot of that guessing and that trust, builds the trust and takes a lot of the guessing out, where you're a lot more likely to go with someone or try someone new if your buddy has already kind of vouched for them or worked with them and not got burned. I understand there's always going to be people that are starting with someone newer, and maybe they are I don't want to say the person you're kind of like putting up for, to see if they're going to get burned or not. But I was going to ask you, which is it's a little random, but what is the craziest story? You don't have to like name a company or a driver's name. What is the craziest story maybe you've encountered in your years of working in the freight industry?
Yeah, one thing that definitely comes to mind is we were moving an open deck shipment on a hot shot, right? So just a pickup haul on a 30 or 40 foot trailer. I can't remember exactly how big of the trailer it was. Long story short, that individual driver, everything was clean with the driver. That was all good. It wasn't any sort of impersonation or anything like that. Turns out the trailer itself was a rental. It did not belong to the driver. And after a while, we ended up finding out that driver was no longer supposed to have possession of that trailer. It was supposed to be returned prior to him picking up our shipment. So he just dropped that trailer with our freight on it on the side of the road and said, hey, I'm actually in trouble because I'm not supposed to have this trailer anymore. I'm out of there. So then we had to work with the company who actually owned the trailer, do all the digging in the back and forth to make sure that we can transload the freight safely and deliver it, because it's on a trailer that doesn't belong to us or our carrier, we found out. So had to work through that. It took a couple of months, but nothing was stolen, nothing was damaged. Transparent with the customer the whole way through and got it all sorted out. But again, I don't think any sort of technology would have been able to say, hey, you shouldn't use this guy, because it's you can look at maybe insurance certs to say, hey, can you send me the VIN number of the trailer, right? But we found out he was leasing a trailer that he shouldn't have had anymore, and he just decided, you know what, now's the time. I'm going to get in trouble if I hold it any longer, so I'm out.
Well, I'd imagine, like you were saying, in communication with the customer the entire time, that's got to go a massive long way than just being like, well, that things happen. That's huge.
Yep, 100%. Something that I try to do is as much as I possibly can, because in logistics, right, especially at a brokerage, there is so much that's out of our control. I always try to, when things are going sideways, if I'm going to have to go back to my customer with an update that's not that positive, I always try to come with a solution and not just the problem. Instead of saying, hey, we're still working on this one, or hey, this one's going to be late, and just kind of leaving it there, just kind of coming up with, hey, this is exactly what we're doing to rectify this situation, or here's what we're attempting to do right now to get this freight to you as safely and as efficiently as possible. Things like that, right? Going with that solution or with that transparency versus just kind of shooting them a problem over email and kind of hoping for the best.
So you said your first BCS summit you were at was the one in Dallas, which actually was Paul and myself and Charles and a whole bunch of other people that we know. That was their first ever summit. So it opened our eyes to what we did not know what it was going to be. And then we saw it in person. After being at one, or, what was your thoughts going into something like that, and what maybe changed looking at, what you perceived the BCS summit was going to be like, and then going to that?
Yeah. So what brought me to the BCS there in Fort Worth was the mission, right? Being able to connect brokers and carriers and put a positive spotlight on the industry and be able to be a connector in terms of relationships between brokers and carriers. And when I got there, it delivered and then some. I was able to do, the broker carrier speed dating was a fantastic event where you're just kind of rapid fire meeting up with carriers that are trying to fill their trucks with a certain lane or a certain region. And you're saying, hey, I have this freight that I'm looking to build capacity for, right? So leaving BCS, I very much walked away saying, hey, that mission of BCS was accomplished, of kind of being that connector in that position to be able to help people build relationships, as well as really that human connection, because 99% of what I do is over the phone or over email or a text message back and forth with a dispatcher and a driver. Being able to sit down and have lunch or at a happy hour event talking with these carriers over what they're experiencing, what they're going through, being able to form a little bit deeper of a connection than just shooting them an email asking if they have a truck available. That was probably the most impactful thing from the time I spent there.
That's awesome. We just wrapped up the Kansas City Summit, and we heard that from multiple people, as there's enough freight to go around. Building the relationships matter. And Dan always says, which we agree with, you get what you put into it. So if you go to the summit and you aren't really talking to people, which I don't know why you would not be talking to anyone, because pretty much everyone I've come across at the summit is wanting to connect on some level. You're going to walk away with some amazing deals. If not, at the minimum, you're going to walk away with some great relationships that are going to develop into deals. I will say that we've had, again, on the last one, we had kind of like a speed dating kind of network style thing. And you are correct. The people that are walking away from these things are just getting some amazing deals out of it. And it's really neat to see those relationships develop into something new. And I love that you experienced that from your first one out the gate,
Yep. And again, kind of back to the topic about just positivity within the industry. Trucking is a really hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing to do well. So having a place where you can shine a spotlight on people doing good things or good people doing things the right way, I think is just awesome in general, because one of my favorite things about logistics as a whole, the industry, right? The people I've been able to meet, right? It's the connections and the people that are one of my favorite things. So having a spot for that, especially multiple times a year, is fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. And you even said it that, building the relationships is such a big thing, and meeting them in person. And Paul and myself talked about that just last week, that it's like, LinkedIn is great. Connecting with people online is great, but being in person and seeing those people, and not just sending an email or a message, like you said, and actually seeing them in person, shaking their hand, having dinner or lunch, even just coffee with them, really can change so much of your perspective than just, sending a message on LinkedIn and then forgetting about it for 3 weeks later. So I absolutely love that. If someone wanted to reach out to you and connect with you and, build something from, listening to this podcast, where would people reach out to you? All the good information. This is your chance.
Yeah. So I think probably the easiest would be my LinkedIn. I am also in the bucket of getting 5 to 10 spam messages a day, but I still read every single one. So if anyone wanted to reach out, I'd recommend just connecting with me on LinkedIn, and then firing me off a message, because like I said, I get spammed as much as everyone else, but I still read every single one.
Well, we will be having the summit come up in Dallas in the fall, which will be here before we know it. Paul can vouch for it, that we are actively already in the planning and prepping, and it feels like the time from those summits was so much longer until you're on the team that's like developing it. And I know the rest of the team would, vouch for it. So
life comes at you fast for sure.
Oh my God, it does. Well, Chris, we appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you at a summit coming up sometime soon. And great talking to you, man.
Yep. Josh, Paul, thank you very much. Great talking to you as well.
Thanks. And I think that's about it for this one, Josh.
Y'all are amazing. We will see you on the next one. Peace out.
You've been listening to the Freight Break on the BCS Freight Network. And now, you're not.